Welcome back to the Living Word podcast. Thank you for joining us for episode 1. And we are now back speaking about finances. Don't forget that we are now discussing around what's love got to do with it. In our first episode, we talked about several things that can contribute to good marriage. And now we are going to move on to finances. As we all know, and I want to read out a quote. It says, a strong marriage is built on trust, communication, and a shared financial vision. And I'm going to go first to Akianjibola. What does it mean a shared financial vision for a family? What does that mean?
Thank you for having me. That's a very critical question for a marriage and for couples. Money is one of the most important to sustain a marriage and to sustain relationship. Whether you are in a family or as two or as a government, as a country, money is key because you need to get things done. The essence of you being in a relationship is getting things done, whether in terms of building your love life, whether in terms of building your spiritual life, and whether of settling financial issues and settling bills. So it's so important when you put your hands together and your minds together as a couple to develop a future financially and to also be debt-free. But if you are not united in the same way, because if your husband wants to spend money on A, wife wants to spend money on B, the C, what is key? The C part is what is the key part that you want to put money together to achieve.
You're clearing your project.
Because we know that men, we want to buy things like gadgets. We want to make sure that we can get out there.
How do we resolve that then? Because I'm not going to lie, I'm a spender. I love to spend money, spending on makeup, on shoes, on clothes. So
traveling, holiday.
How do we
now put those resources together to achieve substantial things? You have to know where you guys want to go to. Do you guys want to remain in a rented place, or do you want to get a place of your own? Do you want to start a business, or do you want to be working with people?
So having a goal.
So do you want to have a goal? And I always believe that from my own experience, when you have a goal as a couple, it will involve financial contribution. It's easy to put those resources together when there's a target, when there's a goal. If there is no target, if there is no goal, there's a likelihood where you begin to spend things on what you shouldn't. When there's a
thought there, so in terms of having the goal, and I just want to go to Lady Mo in terms of when you have that goal, how do you work together towards that goal? What's the vehicle for driving that?
I'll start this way because when myself and my husband started dating, we had very different views about money. Because I've been in debt most of the times, in my life, I hate debt now. So, and my husband had a problem now in the past. Sorry. He had a problem in the past with spending and just buying, especially with gadgets. He's just buying laptop, buying all of this. And then at that time, I think he accumulated some money in his credit card. And when we got together, because I hate debt so much, it was a big controversy. So we had to come to an agreement. What do we want? He said we would get married in that first year of dating. I said no, never. Apart from the money part, again, I wanted us to get to know each other first before we jump into some things work for some people, but for me, I've seen so much, and I don't want to.
Don't want to get into debt.
No, I don't want to get into debt. So for us, we had to come into that agreement. We had to clear that credit card debt together. We had to then move forward. How do we ensure that we don't spend impulsively with a credit card? Because when you have credit card, you can just buy, especially when it's saved on your phone and you're on your Google. You're just tapping and buying. And I think that I don't really spend a lot. I don't buy things. So my husband is a spender and I'm the accountant because because we have to come to agreement.
You can't both be spenders and you can't both be accountants.
No, we can't. So there is a future, there is a plan. If we're going to get to that future, somebody needs to be accountable for the money that we are spending. Fortunately, it's myself. But we had to come to that agreement to say this credit card, we have to clear the credit card. And even if we're going to use credit card, what is the limit? is the limit.
It looks
You're
like
not
you have a
above.
really good communication going on in terms of how you are going.
I said it because the first 3 months we actually fought.
vision.
We quarreled a lot about some of these things because our views were like miles apart. So we spoke about those things in our dating, and then when we got into marriage, it wasn't an issue. It wasn't an issue. Yeah.
Can I come to you, Jay, in terms of just financial planning for a family and some of the models that we have out there? Because some people, it's about maybe joint accounts, maybe you have your own individual account and you put money into it. Like, what, in your view, in terms of what should be the ultimate goal, not necessarily making a decision on, the type of financial planning you should have, but how can we improve on that process?
So I think I'd start off by saying that Amos 3:3, the Bible says, can two walk together except they agree? And I think that is no truer than in the issue of money in marriage, okay? For something that can be so separating in life generally, if you're really not on the same page, you already start off on that kind of pathway. And so I think one of there is no real perfect modality to sharing having a shared financial goal, like, oh, you must have joint accounts or you must have this account. What I would say is vocalize it and talk about it. Now, a lot of us grew up, and I always talk about it because I realize the importance of it is upbringing. Now, some people, their dads were the boom, 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 boom
provider,
boom, everything that needed to happen, they would drop it. Some people saw their mums go to the market and pay for stuff or go grocery shopping and do things. And some people saw their parents do 50-50. Actually asking, what did you see? That's one. What do you think, knowing that both of us as individuals and how our what I term money habits. What is your money habit? What's my money habit? What do you think, thinking about the two of us, would work for us?
And that's the conversation you have right at the beginning.
Yes, it is. The very first time me and my husband had tense, I want to say I remember, I can't forget it, engraved in my head. The time we had a tense conversation was when we started talking about money. And I knew it was an absolute critical conversation to have before we entered marriage, no matter how unpleasant we would feel. But because it's better to feel unpleasant about it now that there is no commitment than to feel unpleasant about it for the rest of it. So firstly, having that initial conversation, what did you see? What's your money habit? And what do you think? Thinking about those two things will work for us. We don't have joint accounts. We don't. And so a lot of people's like, But we realize when there is things to be done as a family, it comes out from both of us. And how we get that money, whether you send the money to me or I then pay on you, return it, whatever it is. But we know there is that togetherness in that sense. I think really there's a joy in when you do things together. If there's not someone that just, okay, well, it might seem nice at a point, but at a time as a lady, I feel like you also want to be like, you're involved in this. Oh, honey, I just bought a 24 million pounds house. Okay, that's lovely.
But
where's the conversation in it? But I'm the one that is the breadwinner. I'm the one that. So I think you can find that something that would have sounded very lovely and caring in the beginning could actually be something that removes you gradually from the picture.
That is very true.
And I think we just need to balance that. Now, it's obviously nice when your man is, tap, tap, tap,
doing
he's
everything.
doing it and he's paying for stuff. But actually, I think that partnership needs to not be forgotten. And if you're in a position as a woman where you are earning money, there is nothing wrong
with you
in dropping some of that as well,
definitely.
Especially towards the goal of your family.
I think that's really interesting what you mentioned around, your background and what you grew up with, as well as making sure that you're communicating. Personally, for me, I'm a big spender. I can go out, buy things and not care about it. But growing up, like you, I wasn't in debt, but my parents were so conscious about that. Like when I was growing up, my mom never used credit card. Everything used to be cash. So for me, I have to have that money to be able to spend it. But the conversation I had with my husband before we got married is, listen, if I can spend all my money myself, so we need to have a joint account. And that was because I was fearful of what I can do with my own money. I would say call it my money. Whereas by putting it into the joint account, I'm like, it's our money. So, but from a man's perspective, though, how do you encourage? Because there's some. I'm gonna go back to this traditional idea of men wanting to provide, and it's a natural instinct. So how does that feel in terms of how do you encourage your partners, your wife, to be part of that financial goal?
I think for men, naturally, we want to provide. And I think a man that doesn't have money, feels naked. And that's the fact.
A man that doesn't have money feels naked. Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that. We wouldn't know that.
Yeah, that's the fact. You want to hide yourself out because you don't want to go out with your family. And you want to get to a point and say, "Oh, we want to pay for this," and then everybody's watching one another, and then you're because
a man without money feels naked.
So,
that song says,
so you
don't have money, hide your face.
You have to hide your face. Yeah. As a man, you want to naturally carry that responsibility of funding of that. But unfortunately, where we are now, it's difficult to do that by yourself. Because you need the support of your wife, whether through understanding or whether through carrying part of the burden. So I think a level of transparency is important. But as an African man, I'm talking for myself, it's difficult for a man to be transparent about money, about how much they have, how much they can spend. A man just want to buy things and make it a surprise and make the family happy, the wife happy. But we are not comfortable completely in talking about our finance because we don't want to feel vulnerable and say this man doesn't have the money, always hiding away. So that's the challenge. But hopefully through maturity, you can tell your wife to some extent where you stand in terms of your finances. And when you need help, you can also tell her. It's also the responsibility of the woman not to take that as a point of reference and say, when you were struggling, I gave you this.
That's
because when women do
you
that,
want to feel empowered as well. So
that's the balance that the women have to bring. But as a man, Jenny, you need to be transparent. I know some people, my granddad, he gives his wife and said, "This is my check." So the good thing about that, you cannot ask anything outside of this check. Because you know this is the check. This is everything. So if you go outside of this, then we're gonna be stranded. So, but nowadays, because of this, our facade and things is difficult. But I think when a man begins to mature in marriage, in relationship, you need to get to that point where you're a little bit transparent, telling your wife, "This is what I have. This is what I can do." Like my wife will know if she may say, "We need to get something." I may say, "I'm not sure yet." But at the back of my mind, I'm working out the calculations. Say, how much will this thing cost? What do I need to be disciplined about? How much do I need to save? That's how I think. And I think most men think that way. When their wife say, "We need to get this thing," they start calculating. I said, "Okay, take this one out, bring this one. Okay." So I think a man needs to get to that point of maturity, but it will take time. So women in marriage, give time to your husband because for him to be transparent from an African perspective, because it's difficult for a man to tell you, "This is all I own." And then they feel, I'm completely vulnerable. Whatever this woman throws at me, I have to take it. So the woman should allow the man to mature, to be able to be transparent. But there's nothing bad in discussing about the money, especially when you have project. If you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car.
It's interesting in terms of that, the men's perspective and being vulnerable, not being too vulnerable, but also as women, Lady Mo, there's sometimes that you just want to buy the latest Ninja cooker that you see in John Lewis. How do you make sure that you indulge in things that are important to you, but also you're still part of contributing to that financial goal and not going overboard?
Yeah, I think the way we run things is together. So we put all the money together. And if we're going to get anything, we put in the budget. So if it doesn't enter the budget this month, it will enter the budget next month.
Oh, so you budget. Okay.
So we do budget. My husband uses an Excel sheet to budget for the family and then sends it to me. Sometimes we do it together, but I cannot be bothered. Like, just do it and send it to me. So that's how we do it. Like, if we need to get anything and it's not urgent, we put in the budget. budget. If it's urgent, we have to sacrifice our personal allowance because that's the way,
I like that personal allowance. Yeah.
So so we run the budget. There's personal allowance. There's one for charity, which is to our parents, to our family. There's one for the bills, so we do all the rent. So because we put everything together, there's no like I see you, you see me. I'm not hiding anything. You're not hiding anything. So that's how it has worked for us. And again, because we're trying to keep ourselves accountable, so that we don't overspend, we don't overuse our credit card, because we still use credit cards sometimes to do some other things. So we don't overuse our credit card. We don't, also because the issue of family is very important in marriage, because when we do budget, we budget as a family, and then we split it into two for charity, and then we say this is for your family, this is for my family. So we give the equal to our family, and then when they ask us for extras, I'm really sorry, like this is what is coming out from our family. So it's not like it's coming out from me or it's coming from my husband. It's coming out from our family.
To add to that, which is really fantastic in terms of how you put the cut into slice and dice it and say this is for this, because external influence is also one of the things that couples don't talk about, the impact of that on your finances. When external, it'd be an uncle, a brother, not say demanding, but asking for support. I think it's good to be transparent about that, so especially when you have a project and letting your partner know, your husband or your wife know that, my uncle or so, or somebody's asking for support, and this is what I'm intending to do. So whether you want to make adjustments about that,
of course.
Also want to add that when you come into this environment in UK, you also have to be very careful as couples, because the way the finances are is quite different from where you're coming from Nigeria.
How is it different?
Because we in Nigeria, you can get money, money from people in Nigeria. You can call someone and say, brother, I need some money, and they give it to you. Not necessarily here. Things are usually tied to whether you're borrowing money from your credit card or from a loan. So you need to understand the system, how you buy things, how you look for bargains. You have to think about that. In this place, there's room for you to research about what you want to buy, get good deals. So when you come into this system, just don't take things at face value. You want to buy something. Insurance is a good example. You want to get insurance, you see one, it looks good, but do your research, because you may get good deals, good bargains, and that's a way of supporting your finances here, which is key. So I would say in terms of finances, do a lot of research in terms when you want to buy things.
As a family,
so you can get the best. My wife is good in doing that. She's good in researching about products. She can check 50. Me, I see one thing I like, I pay for it. I don't have time to be looking at that, but she can give you 50. I said, well, you have 50 options. When would you settle? But finally, but it's good to do that, because you get good deals.
And I think there's also this thing that, sometimes when we go to the store, I always look at all the prices. Like when we both go into the store, my husband just picks something up. I'm like, did you check the price? And it's like, it's just there for us to buy. But for me, that's part of being financially prudent. And I always think, is this a necessity or is this just a want? And if it's something that I want, then I have to budget for it. And it's not just a matter of, I can just pick it up. But if it's a necessity, am I getting it at the best price? That's always at the forefront of my mind. Whereas my husband, we go and pick up milk that is like, pasteurized milk. And I'm like...
And I think that's really important when it comes to what you do there. Opening up, it's, you get men that may be closed with their money. Once what you're doing there begins to open your husband more, because he realizes actually you're not trying to blow the money at once. You're trying to make it work for us. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more. I'm going to be a little bit more open, because I can see that actually we're aiming for the same thing, which is for the benefit of this family. So the place of a woman in all of this is really important. If you're that, let me see your salary, let me see your paycheck, he's going to cage up more.
Definitely.
But actually, if he sees that you're wise, you're sensible, you know what money means, he's naturally going to be like, do you know what? I got paid 5K today. What did you get? It's going to be easy conversations rather than, we didn't see your paycheck today. So I think women, you have a strong role.
Definitely.
In that.
And I think as wives as well, because what I'm trying to extend is not just, what we spend, but also how are we investing that money? How are we teaching our children about money? Because I think that's really important. Like, within our community. I don't just want it to be a matter of you earn and you spend, but actually, are we investing in, even if it's just an ISA that we're investing in, that can bring us money so that our money is not just sitting in the bank.
It works for you.
It works better for us. So I think that's really important. But one thing I do want to kind of like get your thoughts on as well is in terms of budgeting as a family. And I think you've mentioned about some of that, and Lady Moore as well, and making sure that you are supporting extended families as well. But how do you do that in such a way that, it may be okay for you to say there is no more, but sometimes that need is really there.
Yeah.
And, how do you align your family's need with what you have, but making sure that you're not stretching yourself too much?
Basically, we go for what is urgent, what is important, what is just a want.
Yeah.
So if it's a want, it can wait. If it's urgent, we have to pull our resources together. And whether that means, from my last month's personal allowance, I didn't spend a lot. Don't worry, I would, put it into it. And whether it's from him or I have some money somewhere, I will send it to you. For example, there was a need back home where one of my relatives was in the hospital and we needed to pay a huge sum of money. And I was asleep. I think I was sick or some. I was asleep, and then by the time I woke up in the morning, my husband had sent money to my family. That's how we do it. Like if it's urgent, if it's about, of course, life and death, we have to send money. We have to bring out money from everywhere. But if it's want, you have to wait till we budget for it because there's no money anywhere. Like we're trying to manage ourselves so that we're also able to be there for you when you really need it. Because if we keep spending money on wants, when you really do need it, we're not going to be available. And I think
you should say that louder at the back of the
because there is a lot of black tax as we know about it. Like people want to always blackmail you to give them money. Like, I asked you for money last month, you didn't give me it. Do you know how many people I send money to in a month? Just because I'm.
But I think what you said is really important in terms of being able to identify what is a want and what is a need. Because, like you said, if all I'm attending to is just your wants, when you really need it,
I'm not going to have enough.
I'm not going to have enough.
Yes.
It's common sense.
Yes.
But I think it's also about balancing that and making sure, okay, if I'm going to do this want for you as a one-off, but just bear in mind that a day is coming that you're going to need as well. Thank you for that. I've really enjoyed this podcast, but I don't think we can leave without really touching up about how God has shaped our marriages. I personally, for me, and I'm going to be vulnerable here, I don't think my marriage could have survived for 10 years without God being at the center of it. Had really hard time in our first and second year of marriage. But now that I am in our 10th year and I can reflect on how God has really been front and center of that. But what I want to ask is, how do you make God front and center of your marriage, of decisions in your life? What role has God been playing in that place?
The main thing for us is we remember to whom we did our vows to. We did our vows to ourselves and in front of God. And in everything we do, we always remember that, as me and my husband, it's about us with God. At any point we take God out, we realize that actually we're not doing our vows anymore.
So you're anchoring it on your vows in terms of
because if we did it just in our room, I hereby marry you and that was it, then actually we don't really have that unifying third party. But we always try and remember that actually it started with God in church. And being a traditional girl getting married in church, that for me was the significance of that. And little ways we try and do that is, it's hard. I mean, and I feel like particularly in the Western world, maybe it might be in the African setting or in the different other, that there is a competition for your time with God. And more so,
much going on.
More so as a couple, because I started to understand a bit more that the devil knows that a unified couple with God is a force to be reckoned with. So we remind ourselves of that and be like, and my husband's very good at it. Before you go to work, let's just quickly pray. He's very good at in the car. It may not be the ideal situation, but not neglecting those little bringing God into the day. Yeah. And interestingly, our son watches that. He's only just turned 2, but he knows the word Bible, and we say Bible. He knows where to get his Bible from when we're opening our Bible. So I think what you do influences those around you who are watching you. So it's really important.
I just wanted to add to that. I think when you talk about having God at the center, you don't have to be in a special place to communicate with God as a couple. Anywhere you are, you're going to work, you are eating and everything.
There's no ideal.
There's no ideal way to do it.
Ideal is what you set it to be.
I always tell people that when Adam and Eve came together, they came together with God at the center. They didn't need a priest. They didn't need an evangelist or a prophet to say that, declare. So once you get married and you have God at the center, just continue to keep him there.
But how do you continue to keep him there?
Because that means that every important decision you want to make, consult with God and jointly. And individually, and also it's so key and important that always have a time to pray. And as I said, you don't have to be we are in the room, anywhere, whether you're in the car, you're going out, say a word of prayer, and then individually pray for your marriage as individuals, wherever you are. I always do that. God, help me in my marriage, give me wisdom, give me knowledge, help my wife, give me patience. So privately always pray for my marriage, because sometimes I'm telling you, the journey of marriage, individually you cannot do it, because you're going to be stretched, you're going to be tested, you're going to test your wife's going to test you. But you need patience and God.
You need God.
Absolutely. Even when it got to a point when Jesus Christ was getting to that point on the cross, he was tested. He said, God, this thing passed my power. The same thing with marriage. Anyone that can stay in a marriage can look after a mad person. And that's how I'm saying.
Anyone that can stay in marriage can look after a mad person. Sam was right. You have to pick up from there then. Maybe not the mad person, but looking after the other person with God's intervention and God's wisdom.
Putting God in your marriage starts from the individual before the marriage. So we have to make emphasis on who you choose to be your husband. Who
you choose to be your husband.
Your partner. So who are you choosing? Is this person... Does this person understand God? Does this person know God? Can God speak to this person? And
I think that's why it's important to make sure that when you are really making that choice, that you're going after someone that loves God.
Do
not be unequal. And I think it's not too late to emphasize that. It's not. Nowadays everything is modern and we're on Instagram, but it's still a fundamental.
It is evergreen. Evergreen. You have to look for a man that God can speak to. Like when you can't get through to that man, can God get through to that man? So if you're choosing a man that God cannot get through to,
or a woman,
or a woman, so how are you going to help yourself in that marriage? God, like the marriage. You can't do marriage without God.
You can't do marriage without God.
Because it was created by him in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you are choosing a man, you have to choose a man that is God-fearing. And I'm not saying necessarily a pastor, because we've heard all sorts of things about pastors. You want to choose somebody that has the fear of God.
You have to choose someone that prioritizes his relationship.
Exactly.
Somebody that is really fundamental.
Exactly.
It's not just about, I want to get married and then I'm going to go and become a Christian and be praying all the time. It's a lifestyle for them. It's not It's like pretense.
Yeah. So individually, you have to know God so that when you come together, you can put God first in your marriage. And I think that's what I'll say.
I'm just going to say that I remember when I was 19, one of the fundamental prayers I prayed when I was only starting undergrad at that point. I remember saying, God, give me a man that loves you and as an overflow of that love, loves me.
That's a powerful
I just want to add something to that.
I think that's a Sierra prayer.
I just want to add something to that. Every woman, if you're not married, if you want to get married, look for a man that knows God, that has the fear of God. It's more important for that man to know God than you. Because when he knows God, as you said, you can tell God, speak to this man, and he will help you direct the family.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I remember when I was about to get married and one of my sisters in church, or one of my aunties in church at the moment, she was just giving, we're just having a random conversation. And she said to me that, every time my husband offends me, I always go to God and say, God, this man that you gave me, look at what he's doing. Like, you give it back to God. And that was something that really helped me in terms of developing patience, because I'm not always fighting him. It got to a stage that I started praying about it. And because he already has a relationship with God, I have that confidence that God will speak directly to him without me even having to go.
I think I want to quickly say something to that. There were times where myself and my husband, we quarreled, we had misunderstanding, and I genuinely was right. This instant, I was right. And, I had the choice to make, to carry on, to become, to be mad, but then the Holy Spirit, will say, if you do things like this, you'll be surprised how it will go. And instead of staying mad, I'll do something else, and he himself will be surprised, like, are you really this person? Are you sure you are human? Do you understand? But I'm human, but I have a God backing me. So that's why God is very important. The Holy Spirit will tell you things that are not conventional, things that are not, if you tell it to the world or you tell it to another person, be like, you must be crazy. What you did. But that is the role of the Holy Spirit. And every time we refuse to mend up with our spouses, we're giving the devil a chance to come into our marriage. So every time I think about it, I'm like, do I really want the devil into my marriage? Like, no, we have
you
to,
already have enough, enough on your plate.
I don't have to wait for him. I just have to do my own part and wait for God.
Thank you so much.
That's really good.
And thank you everyone for thank you for our panelists, to Jay,
Thanks for
to
having
Aki,
us.
to Lady Mo.
Thank
I
you.
really, really enjoyed this podcast. I hope it's going to bless you. We've spoken so much. If you haven't listened to episode 1, please go back and listen to it. We've spoken so much about, the communication, about keeping the flame alive. We've even spoken about, sex, and then finances, and then the role of God, the vital role of God in sustaining our marriages and to keep us going. So thank you for joining us. If you do have any questions, please pop it down in the chat box. And we hope that you will join us again next time. Thank you for watching.